The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to St. Luke.
Glory to you, O Lord.
When Jesus had come to the end of all, he wanted the people to hear. He went into Capernaum. A centurion there had a servant, a favorite of his, who was sick and near death. Having heard about Jesus, he sent some Jewish elders to him to ask him to come and heal his servant. When they came to Jesus, they pleaded earnestly with him. "He deserves this of you," they said, "because he is friendly towards our people. In fact, he is the one who built the synagogue." So Jesus went with them and was not very far from the house when the centurion sent word to him by some friends. "Sir," he said, "do not put yourself to trouble, because I am not worthy to have you under my roof. And for this same reason, I did not presume to come to you myself, but give the word and let my servant be cured. For I am under authority myself and have soldiers under me. And I say to one man, 'Go,' and he goes. To another, 'Come here,' and he comes. To my servant, 'Do this,' and he does it." When Jesus heard these words, he was astonished at him, and turning round, said to the crowd following him, "I tell you, not even in Israel have I found faith like this." And the messengers got back to the house. They found the servant in perfect health. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
My dear friends, today we begin the first day of the Novena Mass to Our Lady of Sorrows. On September 15th, that is on Wednesday, we will celebrate the feast of Our Lady of Sorrows. I'm sure when we hear the word sorrow, all of us can identify ourselves with the Blessed Mother. I'm sure all of us, we have all gone through some kind of sorrows. We all have experienced many sorrows in our lives. Experiences of sorrow can be very overwhelming, can be very painful. And today, we are called to look in a very briefly of the sorrowful experience of Mary. Traditionally, there are 7 sorrows of Mary. We are not able to look at all these 7 sorrows of Mary, but at least for this evening, we can take the first sorrow of Mary, the prophecy of Simeon. But before we can look at the whole experience of Mary with the old man Simeon, it is important that we realize how Mary, our Blessed Mother, can help us to go through when we experience sorrows in our own lives. Whether or not anyone has any affiliation or devotion to the Mother of Jesus, I have come to believe that everyone can find their struggles and sadness hidden in the folds of Mary's robe of sorrows. Whether Mary is approached as a historical or symbolic figure of compassion, the aches and sorrows of a life contain a message of strength and consolation of those who hurt. I have personally found much hope and inspiration when I have discovered my own struggles reflected in the sorrows of Mary. In this mother of sorrow, I have found a woman of compassion and courage. Life experiences give me strength to stand my own tribulations. It is in this conviction that we decided to celebrate this 3-day of the Novena Mass to Our Lady of Sorrows. Since we also have the image of Our Lady of Sorrows, the statue of Our Lady of Sorrows. We all know that Mary has many titles. Theotokos, God-bearer. We celebrate many of her feasts with different titles. Our Lady of Lourdes, Mary, Help of Christians, Our Lady of Grace. But somehow when we hear the title of Our Lady of Sorrows, somehow all of us can identify with her. Because she herself have gone through this path, the sorrowful path of a journey of faith. Of course, it all started when Mary and Joseph went to the temple on that very day to present Jesus in the temple. And that's where the first sorrow of Mary was prophesied. We call the prophecy of Simeon. That made Mary wondering what Simeon was prophesying. Because at the story of the Annunciation, we don't hear the angel talking about this kind of event that will take place. That Mary's heart will be pierced by a sword. We don't hear all that in the story of the Annunciation. And not just that the initial calling of Mary, nothing was mentioned about the second sorrow, that is the flight into Egypt. Nothing was mentioned also about the loss of the child Jesus in the temple of Jerusalem, or Mary's meeting Jesus on the Via Dolorosa, the way of great sorrow, the crucifixion of Jesus, the piercing sight of Jesus with a spear, and his descent from the cross, when they brought him down from the cross, and the burial of Jesus by Joseph of Arimathea, the 7 sorrows of Mary. And all these 7 sorrows of Mary is not something that can be easily embraced. It's something so difficult and so hard for any of us, or even in the case of the Blessed Mother, to embrace. Because these heavy events in Mary's life reminds us that she can relate to everything we have suffered. Having to leave our homes to find safety, or terror of losing track of our children. Sometimes we parents, we are worried of our children, what time they will come back, what time, whether they have reached safely. Constantly going on in our minds. Watching our beloved ones suffer or even die, and more. I imagine her losing Jesus in the temple of Jerusalem. And it took 3 days for them to recover him, to discover Jesus sitting among the elders. And when they go to him, Jesus would say, "Why were you looking for me? Did you not know that I must be in my Father's house?" And in the following verses it says that Mary kept all these things in her heart. When we look at all these 7 sorrows of Mary, it seems to me that every moment of Mary's sorrow was also a moment of letting go. Even when this old man, Simeon, prophesied something about what would happen to her son and what would happen to her, she was not really able to grasp what was being said. But there will be a time when she will recall back what Simeon has said in the temple. And then when she recalls the words of Simeon and seeing what is happening to her son, Mary learns of letting go. And it is not easy. It is not easy for you. It is not easy for me. It is not easy for any one of us. Because in the whole process of letting go also causes pain. It may cause us discomfort. It may cause us even suffering and pain. And it is here the Blessed Mother helps us to realize that it is in the whole process of letting go that we are able to trust in the power of God. This whole experience of Mary going through stage by stage, especially our own sorrows, reminds us that sorrow is present in every life. In every life. And Our Lady shows us that in order to rise with Christ, we must first endure the cross. And the journey to holiness must include sorrow. So it is comforting to know that we have a mother who understands our sorrows. We have a mother who will help us to go through our own path of sorrows, because whether we want it or not, we will all experience, or some of us would have experienced, all of us will have to experience sorrow, whether we want it or not. It's just like we may not know when it is coming. It's like Joseph and Mary entered on that particular day into the temple, and they had no idea that they would encounter this old man Simeon coming from nowhere. We do not know the whole background of Simeon, where he's coming from, whether he's a family man or a single man. And after that, what happened to him? He just comes and prophesies something which can be very startling. And then he just vanished. Mary and Joseph were not expecting to encounter Simeon on that day. The same thing, my dear friends, when we talk about our own experiences, sometimes we too go through our own kind of Simeons who comes upon us unexpectedly, as Mary's encounter. And they come with equally harsh news that we find it so difficult to accept. What is being announced to us, we are not prepared to hear. We don't want the news any more than Mary did. We don't deserve it any more than Mary did. But our Simeons appear anyway, and with them comes struggle and suffering. I don't know whether you have experienced that or not. The Simeon's prophecy that comes to you when you are not prepared. And suddenly, it's like turn your whole life upside down without much warning. It will come. It will come. And this kind of announcements will shock us, confound us. They take us by surprise. Take us out from our comfort zones, blast us with their reality. The message they carry bear promises of pain, grief, and turmoil. I'm sure many of us have experienced a Simeon announcement of some type. In the midst of a life that is going reasonably well, comes the physician's prognosis of a serious illness, of future surgery, or letter telling of a job ending, that you are fired, or the family member sharing a shameful family secret hidden for years. The phone call speaking of death. The child insisting on a lifestyle in total contradiction to her parents. When we look back at our own experiences, sometimes we ask ourselves, why do I deserve this? But let me tell you, my dear friends, that our Simeons are a part of life. We cannot avoid them. Try as we might. Likewise, we cannot plan for the kind of suffering and hurt that may await us in the future because of unwanted pronouncements. And it is here, my dear friends, that when we encounter such experiences, it is here that we turn to our Blessed Mother. When Simeon just walked in at that point when they were in the temple, I remember that Simeon did not come by himself. He was driven by the Spirit. He was driven by the Spirit. That's how St. Luke tells us. The Blessed Mother stood there, not knowing what was being said by this holy man, but rather than running away from that kind of announcement, she stood bravely and pondered them in her heart, not knowing when this would take place. So it is important that how we handle our own Simeon's announcement, because it will immediately alarm us, especially when you are not prepared to hear something. If you are prepared to hear something, it's fine. But if you are not prepared to hear, it's difficult. It is going to be difficult. What will happen now? How much hurt will there be? Can I get through this? What will I do? How can I handle this? What will become of me or of us? How long will this go on? All these responses are normal reactions to unwanted news. The only way that we can handle Simeon's announcements, we take time to reflect once again the Blessed Mother. Where else to go? We may want to fight it out or lash it out to someone, but eventually we need to embrace it. We have to face the unwanted news. We have to face it, the unwanted news. Decide what our attitude toward it is going to be. And then deal with the situation as best as we can. All of this takes time. All of this takes time, love, and tremendous amount of spiritual fortitude. And this is where we can learn from the Blessed Mother when talking about spiritual fortitude, how she stood firmly, faithfully, in the midst of her own pain, in the midst of her own suffering. The Blessed Mother stood courageously beneath the cross. So when we talk about the prophecy of Simeon, which is the first sorrow of Mary, it is good for us how this can be related to our own lives. That you and me, we have to face the unwanted, whether we like it or not. Not running away, the unwanted news. We have to decide what our attitude would be, and that's important. What is going to be? And then deal with it. Deal with it. In the film Good Will Hunting, the wise therapist says to Bill, a young man who is hurting, bad things draw our attention to the good things we have overlooked. The wise therapist says to Bill, who is hurting, bad things draw our attention to the good things we have overlooked. Mary didn't need Simeon's prophecy to convince her or remind her of what she had in the beauty and joy of her son. Mary already appreciated who and what she had in her life. But Simeon's words, in a way, sharpened her awareness of her son's presence and goodness she found in many phases of her life. So today, as we ponder on this first sorrow of Mary, especially when we look back the whole encounter between the Blessed Mother, Blessed Joseph, and Simeon, it is good that we take these 4 or 5 important words that will help us to see the goodness around us. That is to attend, notice, look, appreciate, and affirm. When we receive a news like Simeon's announcement, it is a wake-up call. And what we are called to do is to attend, to take notice, to look, to appreciate, and to affirm. So, my dear sisters and brothers, as we look back at the Blessed Mother, let us examine ourselves tonight and see how you and I will handle when we come across Simeon's announcement. But let us also be reminded that we have the Blessed Mother who have gone through that experience. So we ask her to pray for us and to intercede for us this evening.